At the time, I was a fairly sheltered 19-year-old female who just broke up with my high school sweetheart and fiancé. I had gone to a huge Christian youth conference and heard about a Christian social media site similar to MySpace. I can't remember what it was called. I was super excited to set up my profile when I got home and meet a lot of people around the country based on things we have in common. The site would ask for movies and music you liked, activities you enjoyed, food you loved, the typical social media stuff. It would then give recommendations of people that have the same interests as you. I was tired after the excitement of setting it up as soon as I walked in the house after getting home from the conference. I decided to go to bed and check it out in the morning to see who I could be friends with in a different place. I had a message from my soon-to-be crazy ex. I don't remember what it said, but we started talking and he was the same age as me and had gone to the same conference I had, except in another state. We shared stories about our experiences, our favorite parts, and everything that I said was his favorite, he said was his favorite as well. So naturally, we hit it off right away. He eventually asked for my phone number so we could talk outside of the website. I was weary of giving him the number because, as I said, I was a fairly sheltered girl. But he convinced me that he was crazy about me and just wanted to hear my voice. So I caved and sent him my number. I got a text immediately from him saying if he could call me. I told him I could talk later that night as my family was still awake and didn't know any of this was going on, and I didn't want them to hear me. So we just texted all day. There wasn't anything we didn't talk about. He told me he was the manager of an IT department for a really popular cell phone company, which should have been a red flag as he was only 19. But no flags were raised since he made me feel amazing about myself, and I wanted to believe he was as wealthy as he said he was. We talked for months. He eventually asked me to be his girlfriend, and because he made me so happy, I said yes. As soon as I did, things changed. He would compliment me and make me feel like $1,000,000, and then say something super negative in a happy, positive way so I wouldn't think anything was wrong. Mind you, everything I am about to tell you I didn't realize was bad or abusive mentally, emotionally, and eventually physically, until much, much later. He had a very manipulative personality, and would talk me into doing things I wasn't comfortable with by saying things like, "If you love me, you will do this," and "If you do this, I will reward you when I come and see you." Now we would talk for hours every night, and he would stay awake and just listen to me breathe while I slept. And then yell to startle me awake, to ask me to send him dirty pics, so he would see me while I slept. I was extremely uncomfortable with this, but him being a master manipulator talked me into it. I sent him one and immediately heard him start masturbating to it. He was telling me things like, "This is what you do to me." He would send me pics too, which I didn't ask for in the beginning. Things escalated from there, where he would ask me to send him pics of me masturbating to pictures and voice, which I naively did. I was afraid of angering him and losing him, so I did whatever he asked me to. I'm not going to go into more detail about the other things he asked me to do, but no, it got a lot worse from there. After about 4 months of this, we decided we wanted to meet face to face, and he would come out and visit me. So I talked to my parents about him coming to stay with us, and they agreed he could be there during the day, but he would have to stay at a hotel at night. I told him this and he was not happy, but agreed that he would be fine. So the time came where he took a train from California to Colorado, where I live, and I went to go pick him up. My older brother wanted to come with me as he was uncomfortable with me going to the train station to pick up someone I had really never met. I was not happy, but he offered to drive, so I reluctantly agreed. We picked him up without a hitch and went back to my parents' house so I could introduce him to them. This next part should have been a huge red flag, but I ignored it because I was so happy he was there. Where we live in Colorado, there are practically no snakes, so when we got home and there was a snake in the house, my parents were concerned, as that was one of the only times we had ever seen a snake in our area. We spent the week having sex, and me showing him around the area. Now at first I didn't want to have sex with him right away, as I just wanted to talk and officially meet. He didn't like that and took his pants off and shoved his penis in my mouth, forced me to suck him off, and then proceeded to rape me. After he made me feel like it was okay because everything we had done on the phone and over text was the same. I shrugged it off, practically being brainwashed, and just tried to forget about it. After we just did the typical touristy things around town. Whenever we were in the hotel room and I didn't want to have sex, he would hit me in places that would be covered with clothes so no one would ask questions. He would force himself on me every day he was there after he hit me. I was so confused, but he said he loved me, so it must be okay, right? That was the thought that kept going through my mind. He went home after a week of being here. Shortly after he got home, he told me he slept with his ex because he missed me so much and I was not good in bed, which was weird because he had only ever wanted to have sex in a chair, never in a bed. I broke it off with him after that, and he begged and pleaded to be back in my life and apologized for everything he had done, and I stupidly let him back in and gave him a second chance. He continued to ask for everything he had before and continued to be a manipulative bastard. I was talking with friends we had hung out with when he was here, and no one liked him and said he gave them the heebie-jeebies. I ignored all the comments they were making because he loved me, right? A couple more weeks went by and he told me he slept with his ex again. And when I asked him why, he said my stretch marks creeped him out and he had never seen them before, and if I wanted to keep him in my life, I had to do something about them. Now, at the time I wasn't a big girl, but I wasn't tiny either. Just an average-sized person. I broke up with him for good at this point. That is when the real crazy came out. When he was here, he got the phone numbers of some of my friends and family so he could contact them if he needed to. With that being said, he contacted everyone he had the number for to ask them why I would not take him back. They all told him he needed to talk to me about it. I told him I just want to be happy, and because he kept sleeping with his ex, and I didn't want to talk to him at all. He continued to call me and text me, all of which I just ignored. After a week of me ignoring him, he started harassing everyone he knew, saying horrible things about me and begging them to get me to talk to him. When that didn't work, he started harassing my brother and parents, calling them multiple times a day. The worst part was that he sent the pictures I sent him, every single one of them, to my family and friends. At that point, I sent him a long message and told him if he didn't stop, not only would I contact the police in my state, but his as well, and file harassment charges and file for a no-contact restraining order. After that, everything stopped, but I was terrified that those pics would get posted online somewhere, and that he would come back out, because he knew where I lived, worked, and hung out. I lived in fear for a very long time. Throughout the years, he has tried to contact me on various social and professional connecting sites. I deleted and blocked every single one of them. To this day, 8 years later, I wonder if he will pop up again, but I'm a different person now, and if I ever see him again, it will not be pretty for him. I'm glad to say that I am now happily married and have moved past and healed from this ordeal. There's some things I need to clear up before I start the story. This happened to my aunt, and we agreed on her telling the story, so this will be from her point of view, but I will add some at the end. Alright, so my nephew Andrew and his parents had gone out on vacation, and Andrew had asked me to take care of his dogs while he was gone. Seemed like an easy enough task, right? Well, other than his dogs being a living hell to have to feed, it was pretty easy, and I was hoping for a little reward from his mother for helping. Luckily, I wasn't alone as my husband was with me. As I said, it was easy and I was fine doing it for a few days while they were gone, but it was one day that stood out from the rest. One that still makes me shiver every time I think about it. I had just finished fighting with those stupid dogs trying to get them into their kennels. I ate a snack and I went to go to sleep in the master bedroom. I woke up at around 2 a.m. I was about to go back to sleep when I heard something that made me freeze. I'm sorry if this sounds cliche, but what I heard was the voice of a child moaning, "Stop it! Stop it!" It seemed to go on forever, or at least that's what it felt like, as I was so scared that I couldn't think. I don't know how, but I gathered up my courage and jumped out of bed and told my husband that if he wanted to stay, he could, but I was getting the hell out of there. He didn't even ask what I was talking about. He just got up and left with me. My aunt told me about what happened, and at first I wasn't sure to believe it or not. but it's not like she would have a reason to lie to me, although I did believe her after what my mom ended up telling me a few months later. She told me while trying to fall back asleep she heard the moaning of a child. It wasn't saying anything, it was a crying moaning. It could be connected, as my aunt did say she heard the voice of a child moaning also. I don't have any knowledge about the history of the house, but until then, I'm not walking inside the master bedroom alone. I'm 17 and I'm from Australia, and this is my stalking. So something you need to know about me. I look older than I really am. I honestly look like I'm 18 and 19, and that's with a bare minimum amount of makeup. But yet, if I have a ton of makeup on, I look like I'm 21 sometimes. So I take 2 trains as well as a bus to get from school to home. So of course, I caught the bus and 2 trains like I normally do every day. But yet, before I got on the bus, I got changed out of my school uniform and into a tank top, shorts, and black-heeled boots. Because a couple of years ago, I had friends that nearly got abducted on public transport. We both believed that it was because she was in her school uniform. If she wasn't, then the asshole that tried to abduct her wouldn't have noticed her. So that was why I always got changed after school. So I got on the bus. I didn't have anyone with me, obviously, because I'm a loner and I honestly don't like a lot of company. I just like to be by myself and read. So the bus I was on reached the train station. I got ready to get off and got to the 5th platform for the train that I was catching. The train arrived and I get on, and after 2 stops I got off and went to the 2nd platform to wait for my next train. As I was waiting, I look at all the people that I might be on the same carriage as. As I was looking around, there was this guy. He locked eyes with me for about a second then looked away. He was wearing a black hoodie and gray sweatpants. He seemed like he was in his late 20s or early 30s. He really didn't seem harmful, but he didn't seem harmless, if that makes any sense. The train arrived and I got on the last carriage, like I always did because the end carriage was always less crowded. And apparently, Black Hoodie Guy had the same idea because he followed me to the last carriage and got on as well. I never like sitting on the seats on trains because you never know who has been on them or what has been on them. So I just like to stand, and guess what? Black Hoodie Guy stood right next to me and occasionally glanced over at me, which really annoyed me, but yet I just pretended that I didn't see what he was doing and just started playing on my phone, which to my dismay was nearly dead, of course, because I use it too much in class. The train came to a stop and I got off since it was my stop, and you guessed it, so did Black Hoodie Guy. Then that's when it hit me. I had to walk home that day because my mother was at the hospital visiting a friend, so she couldn't pick me up from the station. As I was waiting, I glanced behind me, and what do you know? Black Hoodie Guy is still following me. He sees that I notice him, but yet he doesn't do anything. I then grab my phone out of my back pocket and try and contact a friend of mine, just to make myself calm down slightly, but yet none of them answered. This day was just getting worse and worse. At this point, he had been following me for about 10 to 15 minutes, and I had had enough, so I took my phone out of my pocket again and called one of my friends, and obviously they didn't answer. But yet, I really didn't care because all I wanted was for him to get the point and leave me alone because I wasn't playing games. I didn't look behind me for about 2 minutes, and when I did, he was gone. So I quickened my pace and just hoped he wouldn't come out of nowhere and take me. I have never seen him before. Until this day, I have not seen him since.